Sports Network.
The father's job was a simple one: to fish. Journey out into the water, avoid the obstacles put before him, return home with his reward. Simple, but not easy. The son traveled far from home to the biggest city in the world. But no matter how bright the lights would become, the son kept the same focus. Journey out, face the risk, emerge victorious. So simple to say, never easy to do. He lit up the sky like a comet in '96. All high fastballs and fluid motion. He shortened the game, reducing the opposition's hope to nil, and the first championship followed, birthing a dynasty. He then assumed the role of the ninth inning, but his first October ended in defeat. So many closers are consumed by the fire, but Mariano was hardened by it. Never fearful, always faithful, prepared for greatness. The Sandman. Was he a specter that gives his opponents nightmares, or a vision that fulfills the dreams of the faithful? Both sides of that coin are true, as Mariano discovered his ultimate weapon and shattered enough wood to keep Louisville working overtime. Even injury could not stop the one known as the greatest closer of all time. It just made his resolve stronger, and once again, he astounded us with his abilities. And more astonishing than the pitches he threw was the love that flowed toward Mo. Opposing ballparks became family reunions as he received back all the respect that he always delivered. The gifts had been charming and sincere, smiles wide and bright. Now the son of the fisherman and his 5 championship rings have completed the journey that began almost 2 decades ago. The ending has always been his to write, and Mariano authored a closing like never before. Today, the memories come flooding back as the man known simply as Mo makes his return to the site of his greatest triumphs. Mariano RIvera Day is next on Yes.
Well, yesterday, Mariano Rivera shared the spotlight with other members of the 1996 world champion Yankees, a team that laid a foundation for a dynasty. This afternoon, though, all the attention is on Mo as he takes his rightful place among the greatest icons to ever wear pinstripes. Monument Park is about to have a new plaque installed, and we are getting you ready for the festivities. Hope you're having a great day as we welcome you to the Chevy pregame show on Yes. For great deals, visit ChevyOffers.com. Bob Lorenz and Jack Curry with you. It is the final game of 3 between the Yankees and the Rays as the Yanks look for a sweep. But it begins with a ceremony for Mo getting his plaque in Monument Park, Jack. 42 has already been retired. But when you look at position players, and I say to you, or you say to me, who's your top first baseman or shortstop? I could probably give you a list of 5 or 10. But that's a list. When you look at the greatest closer of all time, you just come down to 1.
I think Mariano Rivera is at the top of that list. I agree with you, Bob. And I think there's an argument to be made that Mariano Rivera did his job, his singular and very difficult job, get 3 outs in the 9th inning, better than any other player did his job in baseball history. I think the statistics back that up, and I just think if you look at the way Mariano seamlessly, flawlessly would go out there and handle a job, that is a very difficult thing to do. Not every pitcher can come in and do that. Mariano did it, and most of the time did it with 1 pitch.
Difficult job to do, easiest call for a manager to make, calling out for Mo.
And you look at the impact that he would have on games, right, Bob? Because most people would say, well, how could you say a guy who only pitched in the 9th inning maybe was the greatest performer at his job in all-time history? Here's why you can say that. He impacted games before the 9th inning, Bob. He was a security blanket for Joe Torre and then Joe Girardi, and he impacted the other manager in the other dugout. If your team hadn't scored by the 7th or 8th inning and you knew that Mariano Rivera was looming in the bullpen in the 9th inning, it changed your strategy. I know that because I would ask managers that, and they would acknowledge it, that, yes, when you knew Rivera was looming, the game was going to be over when he came in. You had better score in the 7th or the 8th.
And here's the incredible thing about Mariano. He did it with 1 pitch, the cutter. And if it was any other pitcher who had 1 pitch, Jack, I'd say 4 or 5 years in, hitters would be like, we got this guy figured out. They never figured out the cutter.
They never figured it out, Bob, but that's because Mariano's cutter was not only ferocious, but Mariano was a smart pitcher. David Cohn said that when Mariano first went to that cutter, there was a fear that, yes, eventually batters were going to make an adjustment. Some left-handed batters, they might move off the plate a little bit to take that right to right-to-left movement away from Mariano Rivera, but his cutter had such late movement that they couldn't do that. It was the combination of the speed, but also the late movement. So even though some guys would back off the plate a little bit, some guys might move up a little bit, some guys might try and jump him, none of it worked. There were even switch hitters, Bob, who instead of hitting left-handed would move over to the right-handed side of the box, thinking that maybe that would counter what Mariano was trying to do. That wasn't successful for them either.
One final thing in the open that Michael Kay voiced there, it reminded me of it because I'd forgotten about it, but how ironic and funny it is. The fact that he did keep Louisville working overtime. The amount of shattered bats, you sort of got lost in the noise of how great he was, but it was incredible that every game there seemed to be a shattered bat flying out onto the field.
I used to refer to that cutter as a miniature chainsaw. That's really the effect that it had when he would come inside on batters with that pitch. Batters did not know what they were getting with Mariano. We see more numbers on him, the lowest ERA since 1920, and where he ranks in that. Bob, it was just a magical pitch. It was a pitch that he had earlier on in his career, but in 1997, it was the pitch that really took off. He's throwing in the outfield the way that pitchers warm up before games with Ramiro Mendoza. All of a sudden, Mendoza says to him, "What are you doing? Stop fooling around." Mendoza thought that Rivera was purposely trying to do something funky with the pitch so that Ramiro Mendoza couldn't catch it. And Mariano said, I've just got my regular four-seam grip, and it's making this sudden movement. Mel Stottlemyre, the pitching coach, initially tried to get him to stop doing it. They thought that the movement was so funky that he wouldn't be able to control it, and then they finally decided, wait a second, this could be a magical pitch. Continue to use this, and we know that that pitch rode the Yankee to some championships, and it's going to drive Mariano Rivera right into the Hall of Fame.
Amazing story. All right, time for our first break. We've got much more ahead as we celebrate Mariano Rivera. A bit later on, Michael Kay will check in from the stadium with his memories of Rivera, and we will bring you the ceremony unveiling his plaque in Monument Park. Throughout the show, we'll also look back at some of the greatest moments from Mariano's career, including a few of his milestone saves, taking us to break.
This should do it as they force the runner at second. Mariano Rivera throws two pitches and picks up the save.
Soriano gobbles it up, and the Yankees have won it. 200th career save in the career of Mariano Rivera.
Fisted out the clock, that'll do it. Yankees win the game, and Mariano Rivera nails down his 300th career save. Here's Jermaine Dye, last chance for the White Sox. A 1-2 pitch. He got him. It is Rivera's 400th career save. Mariano Rivera, only the fourth man in history to pick up at least 400 saves.
And that should do it. There is Cano to Teixeira, the 500th save for Mariano Rivera.
Runner goes, go to second, in time, and Mo gets his 600th save. And now Mariano, long considered the greatest closer in the history of the game, has a number to go alongside with 600 saves, only the second man in history to reach that level.
The Yankees pregame show on Yes is presented by your local Chevy dealers. Visit ChevyOffers.com.
Today we're going to be comparing the roll form steel bed.
Three guys.
Attorneys and in
It's only $1,500.
I would have done in my head.
At the walk, and I've just always felt. Sweeney grounds to third. Brocious, fittingly with a throw, and the Yankees have done it again. Number 24.
Swung on, hit in the air to left center. Curtis is there. Curtis makes the catch. Ball game over. World Series over. Yankees win for the 25th time in their glorious history. Swung on, hit in the air to deep center. Bernie back. He makes the catch. The New York Yankees have won their third straight championship. 26th all-time.
To the second baseman, Cano. The Yankees are back on top. World champions for the 27th time.
In 4 of the 5 games that saw the Yankees clinch world championships during his career, Mariano Rivera was the last pitcher on the mound. And today, Mo will be honored for everything he gave to the Yanks when he receives a plaque in Monument Park. We're back on the Chevy pregame and want to get the feel for what's going on at the stadium. So we join Meredith Marakovitz with the Clubhouse Report, brought to you by Empire City Casino. Let's play. And today is a day where we are reminded, Meredith, of the greatness of Mariano Rivera.
He is the greatest closer of all time. There is no disputing that. And off the field, you won't meet a nicer guy than Mariano Rivera. Today is his day, and a lot of his friends and former teammates are already here to talk to Mo, honor Mo as well. I saw Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, John Wetland, Joe Torre, all in the house here for Mo. But as far as Joe Girardi, he was both his manager and a teammate. He spoke about what made Mo so special.
Wow. There's a lot of things. I think the man who he was impressed me the most. Mo burst onto the scene in 1996 and really never ever had a rough year. But he never changed. He never changed who he was. He got older, but he never changed. He was extremely humble and was always there for people. What he did for the guys in the bullpen and what he's done in the community. And then when I think about what he did on the field, he mastered a craft. And you can't say that very often about someone has a craft mastered in the game of baseball because it's so difficult. But he knew how to use one pitch and used it better than anyone ever did. And I found it truly amazing.
Whether it be on the field or off the field, is there a story that stands out when it comes to Mo?
One story that stands out when it comes to Mo. No, I don't necessarily think so. But I do remember hitters, and maybe there is one story. I do remember Rafael Palmeiro coming up to the plate and saying, I don't know why they send me up here. The only place I can hit it hard is over our dugout, because Mo had the ability to cut it in on there, and they couldn't do anything with it. And I just found, man, this is some kind of hitter saying that. So that story always amazed me.
Well, his numbers amaze everybody else, and he certainly made hitters frustrated. The postseason career, just phenomenal. Take a look at that ERA, sub-1. It is the lowest postseason history ERA, and you know that he did a nice job with the other pitchers in that bullpen, kind of trying to teach them a little bit. Dellin Betances has talked about how he had spoken to Mo in the past and really took in all the advice there. But when you look at his career accomplishments, they really are phenomenal. It's going to be a special day for Mariano Rivera. And Joe Girardi went on to say in that press conference, he was asked whether or not he believes Mariano Rivera is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And he said, if he's not, I want to know the guy that doesn't vote for him. I want to talk to him and find out his reasoning. He is absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, it's interesting because, Meredith, he was part of a group of players that formed a dynasty for the Yankees, and the Yankees are hoping that what they saw yesterday is the beginning of a new dynasty and a new era. This youth movement had people very energized at the ballpark yesterday as the Yankees beat the Rays.
A lot of excitement, a lot of buzz at the ballpark and in the clubhouse. These guys have kind of spiced things up a little bit, and you see Tyler Austin and Aaron Judge going back-to-back in their first career at-bats. That's pretty phenomenal. You could not have asked for a better debut from those two guys. And I talked to Joe Girardi about it earlier, about managing the youthful guys and how that changes his job.
You think about when you want your young players to come up, and I think it's really a good time for them to be here, just because of who's in the house and who's been here and how these players were the young players that grew into veterans that led and did a lot of great things. And I'm not sure who it was that was asked yesterday, but you know, they were talking about, oh, it was our two young players. They worry about it day to day, and that's the way that, you know, you think about Bernie and Derek and Andy and Georgie and Mo and the other guys that were here, Paul O'Neill, it was Tino, it was day to day. We were day to day. And I heard him talking about it yesterday, but I think it's good for them to see players that came up through the organization that had so much success and led to so many championships, and just to be around them.
Two things, Joe. Does managing this team with so many young guys remind you of the year with the Marlins?
Yes. Obviously, there's more of a veteran presence here, though, than I had there. Managing that club, when I walked into the clubhouse, I knew 2 spots were secure. That was Dontrell Willis as the opening day starter, Miguel Cabrera at third base. Besides that, I had no idea. But here, there's you know, you have the Guardys, and you have the L's, and you have the Texas, and you have the McCanns, and the bullpen's pretty inexperienced. You know, you have CeCe. But there is some similarities, yes.
And Tyler Austin, what type of first baseman is he? Is he in transition? Is he there yet? Is he a good defensive first baseman?
You know, they've said he's made a lot of progress at first base, and he has not played the position for a long time, so he will continue to improve. But I mean, we see him diving. He made a tough play going over and making a nice throw to Tanaka. So, I mean, you might see some growing pains. I don't think he's marked Teixeira yet, but I think he'll continue to improve.
And here's a look at what both Tyler Austin and Aaron Judge did yesterday. Now, the director of media relations for the Yankees, Jason Zillo, was actually with the Core 4 in the suite yesterday when Tyler Austin hit his home run, and the guys were kind of in disbelief that he was able to do that in his first at-bat. Then Aaron Judge hits a home run. They at first thought it was a replay of Austin's, then realized it was actually Judge who had hit the home run, and then they automatically seen many guys about his fastball command.
What is your favorite memory? Flashback to the moment Rivera became the Yankees' all-time saves king. Tweet your responses using the hashtag YankeesRav4Hybrid to keep the conversation going. Well, Michael Kay saw Mariano's career up close, and when we come back on the Chevy pregame, he will talk about the legend. Heading to break now, we flash back to the moment Rivera became the Yankees' all-time saves king.
Mariano Rivera, if he can get 3 outs, he will become the all-time saves leader for the Yankees.
And he's done it with 1 pitch.
Ground ball. Nick Johnson has it. This ought to do it. Mariano Rivera becomes the Yankees' all-time saves leader. Congratulations to Mo.
August 31st.
Download Fox Sports Go and stream the Yes Network live wherever you go. Get a full shot of New York sports talk.
You can't miss a call like that.
With a splash of pop culture.
I have never, ever been to a Taylor Swift concert.
A dash of big-name guests.
You asked me a question. It's guys with the background of sports having fun and having a good time.
Shake up your afternoon with the Michael Kay Show. Weekdays at 3, right here on Yes. Today, don't miss an all-new WB Mason presents the Joe Girardi Show. Get the scoop straight from the skipper as Joe breaks
$1 billion over 25 years.
And the 1-1. Grounded to first. This will do it. Teixeira takes it himself, steps on the bag, and the Yankees win this one 3-1. And the Yankees have just set a record. Rivera picks up the 58th save of the game that Andy Pettitte won.
Given how Mariano Rivera and Andy Pettitte rose through the Yankee system together, it was fitting that Mo finished off so many wins for Pettitte over the years. Welcome back once more on the Chevy pregame. Michael Kay has seen so much about Mariano Rivera over the course of his career. Michael covered it, of course, as a writer and then as a broadcaster, and he shares his thoughts on Mo now. Michael?
Well, thank you, Bob. Most people, when they think of Mariano Rivera, they think about how great he is in the games that he actually saved. The thing that impresses me the most about Mariano Rivera is how he always responded to the rare instances when he blew a game. If you consider what's the worst thing that could happen to a baseball player, doing something terrible in Game 7 of a World Series, because there is no tomorrow. Mariano Rivera did that. The Yankees were about ready to nail down their 5th championship in 6 years against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It was the 9th inning of that game, and Mariano Rivera with a rare blown save. Well, walked off the field. He went into the visiting clubhouse at the Diamondback Stadium, and for about an hour and a half, he stood there answering wave after wave after wave of questions. Never snapped at anybody. That's the sign of a champion, how they react in moments of adversity. Again, the worst thing you do is blow a save in Game 7 of the World Series, and he was there. And an added bonus to all of that, as this crowd, one after another, 10 after 10, 100 after 100, went to his locker, the owner of the team, George Steinbrenner, was standing there staring at Mariano Rivera with his arms crossed, and Rivera never blinked. And although the team was ready to leave, get on the bus, and go back to New York, he stood there until the last question was asked. That shows you the class of the guy. Now, you don't only want it to have to be about losing, because the guy was a great winner as well, and he handled it with such grace and class. He never big-time anybody. Just think of it. We actually got a chance during these years to watch the greatest closer of all time. Not one of the greatest. Without an argument, he's the greatest closer of all time, and we watched him, and he did it, and he did it consistently, and he did it in his last year. People wondered why he retired, and it's my actual belief that he could still be pitching today and still be the best closer in baseball. I think he just walked away because it was time to walk away, spend time with his family, spend some time with his church as well. But he could still be pitching, and you see him walk out on the field today. He's in unbelievable shape. He's the same guy, and he has never, ever once let his superstardom impact the way he treats people. He'll ask you how you're doing. He'll ask you how your family's doing. So, yeah, people know Mariano Rivera, the closer, the greatest closer of all time. But I've chosen to remember Mariano Rivera, the man that handles losses as well as he handles wins. And in this day and age in sports, that's not too easy to come by. Back to you, Bob.
All right, Michael, thank you. And, of course, we'll see Michael as one of the MCs of the ceremony for Mo. Mariano Rivera made his Major League debut on May 23rd of the 1995 season, the same year that Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, and Derek Jeter all made their first appearances with the Yankees. It did not take long for them to accomplish great things together, and Mo talked about the success they had as a unit when he reflected upon his career with us during this final season in 2013. Mariano Rivera's baseball journey is intertwined with those of his fellow Core 4 members. Before all the accolades and all the championships, Mariano Rivera and his friends just wanted to be considered worthy of the pinstripes.
It was amazing seeing 4 youngsters that came to the big leagues and made it basically at the same time. We didn't know anything about the future. You know, we were just happy to be in the big leagues, and especially in the playoff. Little that we know, I mean, following year we'll be together celebrating another championship and another one and another one.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
Well, the song I was in the middle of being the closer for the first time, and we just came in from a championship the year before that in John Wetland. It only became the MVP of the World Series. You know, I had to do his job now. Everything was getting a mountain on top of me, you know, and I was trying to do so good and giving everything that I have in the first month of April that I was like moving in quicksand, you know. The more that I moved, it was sinking the more. Mr. Torrey and Mel Stottlemyre have a meeting with me and told me that if that will be their closer, no matter what, you know. I know that if I keep doing what I was doing, I won't be the closer for too long, but it took those words, you know, to give me the support, and I never looked back.
The big swing on the cutter, up and out over the plate.
So smooth, that cutter.
That cutter that just is not good to hit from a left side.
And the pitch, I didn't know at the beginning. I didn't know how to use it. I had no control of the pitch. But once I started learning how the ball was moving, I just was trying to throw the ball over the plate and let it do their thing. the rest is history.
Strike three, ball game over.
For 19 years, Mariano ruled the Yankee bullpen. But win or lose, Mo loved the camaraderie and his unique vantage point of the game.
It's great times. It's great time. I mean, getting there and see the guys, you know, waiting to take action, seeing the game develop to the 7th or the 8th inning, and we had to take control of the situation and make sure that we do a good job. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a lot of adrenaline.
In a packed stadium in an all-star game, Mariano Rivera was out on that field all alone.
It was, oh my God, you know, I mean, spectacular. We are grateful. I mean, we are feeling, you know, because I'm used to do that. I'm used to being in situations like that. And seeing the American League team dugout and the National League team dugout outside on their feet, you know, and then the whole stadium on their feet, cheering and clapping. I mean, that was a tremendous moment. That was a moment that I will never forget.
And now we get to watch his final inning here in the Bronx. How's this for drama?
The Yankees is world class. They are in their own league, you know, for me. You represent New York Yankees, I do it with pride and honor. Every chance that I have the opportunity. We have the blessed to be part of a few of those championships. You know, I mean, I'm like, wow, you know, this is for real.
Well, you look at the numbers on Mariano Rivera, 19 seasons, 652 saves, most all-time, and, of course, the last player ever to wear number 42, which is now retired in Monument Park as he gets his plaque out there today. And being out at Yankee Stadium, Jack, yesterday, seeing what happened, we saw the celebration of the 1996 World Championship team, so all the great players, including Mo, were back. And then we see the impact that Tyler Austin and Aaron Judge had. And even though they came out with a bang, nobody's quite sure what their career is going to be. Amazingly, 20 years ago, we could say the same thing about Mariano Rivera.
Right. You look at Mariano Rivera's minor league career, Bob. He was a starter. He was a guy who had elbow surgery. The Yankees loved his arm in 1995. He started. I remember a great game he pitched against the White Sox, striking out 11. They put him in the bullpen for the postseason. But you're right. Heading into 96, they were saying to themselves, what kind of pitcher is this guy going to be? Well, you know what? Mariano Rivera asked himself that question, too, throughout his life. He told me that until he signed with the Yankees, by the way, for $3,500, think about the return on investment there, that he had never thought about being a professional player. Growing up in Panama, he grew up in a fishing village. He worked with his father, who was known as Captain Mariano, and he just played baseball with his friends. He wasn't thinking about being the next Nolan Ryan or, as he said, the next Don Mattingly. But I'll never forget a conversation I had with him in 1996. I wanted to learn more about him. I wanted to know where he was from, how he became a guy who moved toward baseball. And he reached into his locker and he took out a shoebox. And I wish I had a shoebox here right now. I'm not a props guy, but I wish I had a shoebox. Think of the top of the shoebox. And he showed me how he cut a hole in the top of the shoebox and then slipped his hand in there. And that was his glove. We take so much for granted. When we were kids, we had a baseball glove. We had all the equipment we needed. He said he was excited to use that as his glove. They would take an old tennis ball and then wrap some tape around it. And that's how the greatest closer of all time began his baseball career, with a glove that was basically a cardboard shoebox.
And all of that made him who he was. I think that's why he maintained the perspective that he always had and his humility that he always had, because of those beginnings.
No doubt about it, Bob. There are a lot of players in Major League Baseball who will talk about family and will talk about reading the Bible and quoting biblical passages. I saw Mariano Rivera reading the Bible in the clubhouse. I saw him leading Bible class studies with his teammates. What he said is what he did. He was a guy who talked the talk, walked the walk. What I always enjoyed about him, too, Bob, is sometimes you're on deadline and you're rushing to ask questions and you're moving from player to player, and you don't always get to know some of these guys. When you interviewed Mariano Rivera, it was more of a conversation than an interview. It was an education. He was a guy who would tell you why he was doing certain things with pitches, tell you why he was approaching a certain batter in that way. And I always remember that you walked away from him feeling as if you learned a lot more before the conversation ever started.
Well, needless to say, Mo received huge cheers when he and the 1996 Yankees were honored yesterday, and there will be much more of the same today. And taking us to break now on the Chevy pregame, we look back at a night that featured 2 milestones for Mo.
And that should do it. There is Cano to Teixeira, the 500th save for Mariano Rivera, the second in history to reach that plateau.
And it will certainly be a day that he remembers, not only for his 500th save, but also for the 3rd at-bat of his career and the first RBI of his Major League career.
Today we're going to be...
Everyone.
Rivera sets and deals. Strike 3, ball game over, Yankees win, and it's perfect because the greatest closer in history has the most saves in history. With 6:02, he moves ahead of Trevor Hoffman, and he stands alone atop the closer mountain.
And, of course, Mariano Rivera would go on to save 50 more games, so he stands alone above Trevor Hoffman, the only other man to crack 600 with 601. But Mo, of course, 652 saves. Mariano Rivera shattered countless bats and often made hitters look helpless on his way to becoming the greatest closer in baseball history. A converted starter, Mo left unforgettable impressions on those in the baseball world who knew him and faced him. And as we continue on the Chevy pregame, we want to travel back through the years and hear some thoughts on Mo from some of his teammates, his managers, and his competition.
In 1995, you know, and in the minor leagues, Mo always started, and he came up during the season in 95 and made some starts for us when we had a couple of injuries. It's crazy the way things work out, and obviously whoever made the decision to, you know, put Mo into the bullpen, you know, made a very wise choice, that's for sure.
I really believe Mo was Mo. People just didn't know he was Mo, and he didn't know he was Mo yet. He was as dominant that first year as he's been in any year of his career.
Once we found that formula, and, you know, you have Zim sitting next to you, and all he kept saying was Mariano, Mariano, Mariano. And he was unbelievable. You know, he just went out there, and he dispensed people very few pitches in those days. And I can't say the same for Wetland, but he did that kind of job.
There's not a location or a pitch that he's not. He's going to put it where he wants to, and he's going to throw it where he wants to, and he's still going to throw as hard. He's just a freak, you know. There's nobody better.
Mariano, to me, is the best closer in the history of the game, but I'm biased, you know. I've watched him pitch for, you know, obviously his whole career here, and I've never seen anybody as consistent as he has been for, you know, for his career.
You know, on the fundamental side, he's got a great delivery. He's got a great arm action, repeats his delivery with a very classic arm stroke.
I mean, nobody has the pitch he has. That cutter, I've never seen it from anybody in all the players I've faced.
What you're seeing now is the command with the makeup mentally that he has to knowing how to set up hitters, to the way that he's obviously dominating the game is just his precision of his pitches is unbelievable.
The ninth inning is pretty much over, so you know, it definitely gives you confidence.
It's not fun when you hear his walkout song coming in on the ninth inning, but he's good at what he does.
It's difficult every time you try to face him, but you know, that's why you play the game, because you want to face the best.
And this guy has quietly gone about his business every single day and has been a dominant force since day one that he's been up there.
What he's been able to do year in and year out, not only in regular season, the postseason, you know, he's going to go down as the best.
I mean, it's an honor, and to know that the guy at the end is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's taught us all a lot of things in different ways.
He set the bar for every Major League Baseball player. We all want to kind of follow in his footsteps, and his longevity, consistency, and professionalism are unparalleled. And that's what I kind of told him, and what impact and legacy he's left on me and, you know, people that put on his uniform.
great guy, someone that the Yankees, should be very proud of, and someone that will go down as the best closer ever.
You know, for the 9 or 10 years that I've been here, he's been one of the nicest, most genuine class acts that I've ever seen.
I think we're pretty much similar when it comes to our attitudes towards the game and towards other people. I think that's why we get along. I think that's why we've been able to stay here this long. I think that's why we've been able to have success.
He's highly competitive. He loves to play. He has great passion to pitch. And you add all that up, you know, you have a Hall of Fame pitcher.
If he's not a unanimous selection for the Hall of Fame the first day he's eligible, there's something wrong with the voting for the Hall of Fame.
You know, I've been with Mo since '96. Had a lot of great times. He made my job fun. He made my job easy. But probably more important than that, he made all our lives better.
Well, some great reflections there on Mariano Rivera. One really stands out to me, and really just the mechanics of baseball. Bud Black talking about a repeatable delivery and a classic arm stroke. Not arm motion, arm stroke, like the brush stroke of an artist.
Right, Bob, if you took a highlight from one of Mariano Rivera's first games of his career and then took a highlight from one of his final games of his career, you would see the same exact pitcher. And people may say, well, he's the same guy. He should be the same pitcher. It's not that easy. Gene Michael, who, of course, was a Yankee player, manager, general manager, now is one of their super scouts, he used to rave about how Mariano Rivera had that repeatable delivery. And as you said, Bob, the same arm stroke, releasing the ball from the same spot. We talk about the cutter a lot, and yes, the cutter was unbelievable, but he had that ability to just go out there and repeat that motion, repeat that motion. Think of a diver who was just diving into the water so flawlessly, so seamlessly every time. That was Mariano Rivera throwing a baseball. Mechanics weren't an issue for him. And there are some pitchers who mechanics are an issue from inning to inning. Mariano, mechanics were an issue from 1 year to year 18 or 19. It was always flawless.
Well, as we take a look at Mo's first and last save, courtesy of P.C. Richard & Son, Jack, it illustrates your point about the repeatable delivery, how similar it appeared.
Yeah, you watch him, and we'll see some differences, Bob. We'll see a little more hair on his scalp, but we'll see the ability to throw that same pitch, get that double play ground out. We see that same smile. There are the numbers for him, 652. And look, I mean, Bob, there is nothing that is different in the way that he throws the ball.
Well, as you said, he made it easy for all of his managers, including Joe Torre. And Joe Torre talked to Meredith a short time ago.
Joe, when I say Mariano Rivera, what comes to mind for you?
Oh, as far as for me personally, it's Hall of Fame. I mean, the one unique thing, Meredith, about our game is you can't freeze the ball. I mean, you've got to find a way to get 27 outs, and as we've seen over the years, the last 3 are really tough to get. And Mariano, there was nobody better at just putting the lid on something and being able for us to, enabling us to celebrate.
Do you ever think what your life would have been like as the manager had you not had Mariano Rivera in the back end of that pen?
I mean, he was such a security blanket for us. There's no question, and you could see it coming. In my first year here in '96, John Wetland was our closer, and he did a great job for us. But what Mariano did, really from early on in the season, pitched in the 7th and 8th inning, and was so consistent on a regular basis that it was worth giving him an opportunity to take the closer's role. He did struggle, grant you, in early '97, even though I think he wound up with 40 saves or something close to that. But he struggled early on because it's a little bit different pitching those last 3 outs.
How amazing is it to you that he essentially did it with one pitch, the cutter?
Yeah, but he did it with one pitch, the fastball, and most of the time it cut. But there are times when that hitter, especially a left-hander, would be waiting for it to cut, and it would stay on the outside corner. So he, with the help of Mel Stottlemyre, of course, really developed a lot of different ways to throw the fastball and locate it. I think that was huge. The cutter against left-handers was lethal because he could get it in on the hands where they couldn't get it on the fat of the bat. But the way he used to just hit the corners with it was remarkable.
And he always seemed so calm out there on the mound. How do you think he remained calm? Do you think he really was that calm, or it was all a show for him out there?
Well, I don't think he just like, you know, people say, how do you remain calm? I said, well, I sat next to Zimmer. That's what made me look calm. But no, Mariano, there was certainly a lot going on inside. But he had an ideal demeanor for a closer, because you can't get overly excited and you can't get down, because you got to come back and do it again the next day. But I think what really helped him over his career is just his spiritual background. And, you know, he was able to you know, look at the big picture instead of, oh, I just gave it up today. And to me, in our game especially, because, you know, like in other sports, you have a day or two or a week to come back and get yourself ready to play. This sport, you got to just have a real short memory.
Joe, thanks for the time.
Anytime, Meredith.
Send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Meredith, thank you. To the point you made earlier about making it a really easy call for Joe Torre and life easy on the managers, how about the guys behind him and the confidence they had knowing that when Mo came in, it was basically game over?
That's exactly what Derek Jeter would say. He said, when Mariano comes in the game, we feel as if this game is over. After the Yankees acquired David Justice and brought him in, and he was part of the Yankees winning, I remember him telling me that if the Atlanta Braves had Mariano Rivera as their closer, he said they might have won 3, 4, 5 World Series titles. That's how great Mariano was. And Meredith just spoke to Torre, and one thing he talked about with Rivera in '96 was how indispensable he was. He didn't use him in the 9th inning because he had Wetland, but he used him in the 7th and 8th inning, and the Yankees used to say, it's as if we're playing Little League games. These games are over after the 6th inning. Rivera comes in, handles the 7th and the 8th. Wetland, a little bit more of a tightrope walk, but he would handle the 9th, and that was the formula for that team.
And speaking of John Wetland, Meredith had a chance to talk to him today as well. Let's listen.
John, what do you remember your first impression of Mariano Rivera was?
Quiet, you know. He struck me as somebody very quickly as someone that was very observant and intelligent and humble, and he never lost all that. He soaked everything in, and you knew that with his stuff he'd be special one day, but who knew he'd be the best ever, you know. But I'm just proud of him.
What did you think as his career continued to evolve and he continued to have the success after you left?
Well, I mean, everybody knew he was ready at the time, and you know, I could get a job anywhere, but you know, obviously we were close, and we still are, and you know, I only could teach him what I knew, but he kind of took it several steps further and made a great career out of it. So, I mean, again, I'm just so proud of him.
What were some of those early bullpen conversations like when he was your setup man in '96?
Yeah, he would ask a question, I would answer it, or I'd make an observation and say, see, in that situation, this, and that. And, you know, in his ability to apply just verbal knowledge was tremendous. I mean, he would make the adjustment going out there just talking verbally. The other thing is that he noticed everybody's work ethic, and so we were very professional in the way that we went about our business, and he just, you know, he just fell right in line.
John, thanks for the time.
All right, appreciate it.
Send it back to you guys.
All right, Meredith, thank you. You take a look at that dynamic duo of the 1996 season. Mo, as you said, Jack pitching the 7th and 8th, and then John Wetland, the 9th inning. And it's interesting because that year, and you've talked about this, Mo, everything kind of clicked for him, right? And that kind of made some decisions different for the Yankees.
It did. The Yankees knew they had a closer in waiting in Mariano Rivera. And you can look at Mariano Rivera and how great some of his seasons were. His 96 season is going to rank up there as one of his best seasons ever, and it wasn't a year where he piled up all the saves. But, Bob, we've talked a lot about how Mariano got to this point and how Yankee history might be different if Mariano was not ascended to the closer spot. What if they did leave him as a starter? How about this? After the 96 season, the Yankees made a 3-year contract offer to John Wetland, 3 years for $15 million. He ended up taking a 4-year, $20+ million deal from the Rangers. I think it was for $22 or $23 million, so obviously they gave him a lot more than the Yankees offered. But the Yankees loved Rivera. They were still willing to put a 3-year offer on the table for Wetland. they're they're ecstatic that they decided to go with Rivera instead, because obviously we know what he turned into.
Yeah, call Mo a pretty good fallback plan there. All right, in the meantime, that 96 season was important for a lot of reasons to a lot of players. One obviously would be Tino Martinez as well, who replaced Don Mattingly at first base and helped them win a championship. And Meredith talked to Tino a short time ago.
Tino, what do you remember about the first time you saw Mo pitch?
Well, I just thought he made it look easy. You know, he went through the 2 innings real quickly and made the hitters look terrible. But you thought maybe that was just a coincidence, a freak thing. And from that point on, it was just a way he pitched the whole career.
When you saw him in '96, could you have ever expected that he would have the career that he had as a closer?
No, not at all, because, you know, when a guy has success with that pitch, whatever pitch it may be, hitters adjust and they eventually catch up to it. But to go 20 years with that one pitch and dominate like he did was something you'll never see again.
What impressed you most about what he did on the mound?
Well, the way he, I mean, he came in a lot of pressure situations. In postseasons, World Series, it didn't matter what the situation was. He was so calm and collected the whole time and was able to execute his pitches and put it where he wanted and get us some world championships.
Postseason ERA of under 1, and you look at both on and off the field. Everyone always loved being around Mariano. Are there any stories that you can share that stick out with your time with Mariano?
Well, I mean, he's just a great guy. You know, he's a funny guy. He's quiet, but he's just to himself. You know, you see him on the field. He does what he does. He doesn't celebrate. He goes off the field. He's the same way. He's quiet. He goes to dinner, has a good time, and there's not a whole lot to him.
Tino, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Send it back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you again, Meredith. You take a look at the all-time Yankees saves leader, obviously far and away Mariano Rivera with his 652. But I want to go back to something she was talking to Tino about, the postseason saves and the sub-1 ERA. It seemed like when the pressure and the spotlight got hotter, Mariano was even better.
All right, Bob, postseason players or postseason heroes are born if your numbers equal what you did in the regular season. You look at Derek Jeter, he's considered a very good postseason player. His numbers in the postseason were about what his regular season numbers were. Mariano Rivera's postseason numbers dwarf his regular season numbers, which were Hall of Fame caliber. So when it mattered the most, he was at his best. There are a couple things about his postseason numbers. First of all, you mentioned it already, the ERA under 1. That's just crazy. I think it's cool symbolism that he ended up with 42 career saves in the postseason, which of course matches his number. And then we have to throw this out there, even though it's not strictly a postseason number. Wins above replacement is a statistic that a lot of people have started to learn what it is sabermetrically. He has the highest wins above replacement of any pitcher in Yankee history. It's 56.5. He only pitched about 1,300 innings. It's better than Ford. It's better than Righetti. It's better than Guidry. It's better than Pettit. So for a reliever to have the highest WAR, it just again shows you his impact.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. All right, we're getting a lot closer to the ceremony to honor Mariano Rivera, who recorded 2 saves in 1 day 6 times. We look back at the last of those days as we head to break on the Chevy pregame.
And Mariano picks up the save. So now he's trying to get 2 in 1 day. Grounded to third, this should do it. Alex Rodriguez across the diamond, and the Yankees win a thriller. Mariano Rivera with the save, and the Yankees take 2 games from the Twins in a period of about 5 hours.
Easily find.
The game is about to start. Go to papajohns.com now to order the Bronx Bomber Special. 2 medium, 2-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each.
何度も言ってるだろ。軸足に残して自分から打ちに行かないんだよ。わかるだろ?
He said you got to stay back and you got to keep your head still. You can't let your head go towards the ball. Unbelievable. Saiking no wakamono wa.
Tell me about it.
Hey, guess what? Aaron Judge listened, Jack.
Looked to me like the head stayed still, and we already know that he made tremendous contact. Look where that ball lands. 450-foot-ish shot in his first Major League at-bat.
If you like the exit velo thing, 109 miles per hour. So we take a look at the Yankees starting lineup for this afternoon's ball game. It begins with Ellsbury and Hicks, as it was yesterday in the 1-2. last outing.
And now we get to watch his final inning here in the Bronx. How's this for drama?
Again, the celebration of Mariano Rivera set to take place here in a few minutes at Yankee Stadium. We'll get you out there for all of the ceremonies live. But right now, another recollection from another of his great former teammates, Bernie Williams, with Meredith.
Bernie, what was it like to be on a team knowing that Mariano Rivera was coming out in the 9th inning?
It was amazing. I had the best seat in the house, watching him from center field. Back in those days, we knew that, if we had a lead, 8th, 9th inning, it was game over, and a lot of teams knew that, and I think it definitely credited a lot of our success to that.
In your mind, what made him so special?
Well, I think the obvious reason is that he only had one pitch, one effective pitch, and everybody in the stadium knew that he was going to throw it, and he could still get people out and break bats, and I mean, it was just such a remarkable pitch that he was able to master, I don't know, for so many years. That's really special.
How happy are you that you were the guy watching from the outfield, not the guy standing in the batter's box when Mariano came in?
I was very happy about that. I think I faced him one time in spring training, and he had the audacity to throw me a slider. I pulled it down the line for a triple, and then I started staring at him, in third base, like, what is that? But, yeah, he was just amazing.
Bernie, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Send it back to you guys.
Meredith, thank you. I love that. He pulled a slider out of his bag of tricks in facing Bernie Williams. Well, you see what Mo did, again, in the postseason, the sub-1 ERA, 42 saves. And I want to go back to what Bernie said, because it's been often repeated, the one pitch, so much success, everybody knew it was coming. Are you ever surprised? We see other guys throw cutters. You ever surprised that nobody's ever thrown it with the effectiveness that Mariano did?
I'm not surprised, Bob, because in every sport, probably in every endeavor in life, somebody's got to be the best at something, right? Mariano Rivera, best closer of all time, best cutter of all time. I remember talking to Jim Tomei, a great power hitter, great home run hitter, and he basically put his hands up and said, I can't figure this pitch out. He's just puzzled and befuddled by it, and the reason for that, again, is that Mariano got such late movement. A major league hitter has about 0.4 of a second to try and figure out if he's going to swing at the pitch as the pitch is coming in. Well, Mariano's cutter would move in about the last 10 feet of the 60 feet 6 inches to the plate. By then, a batter already has to commit himself, so that's why you saw, Bob, so many broken bats. That's why you saw so many futile swings, because it looked like a fastball coming in, and then it had that sharp cut, that right-to-left cut, and that's why he made so many good hitters and some bad hitters, made them all look bad.
On our post-game coverage yesterday, we showed a graphic not of the core four, but of the fabulous five, and they addressed some of the memories that they had. I think of, because I'm listening to Bernie there, and Bernie was always so stoic in the clubhouse, you'd never even know he's a baseball player. You probably thought he was a guitar player. But then you think of the fire of Posada, the lead by example of Jeter, the way Mo, we've talked about him all day, and then Andy Pettitte muttering to himself on the mound. The personality that was built of that group and in that clubhouse, and it makes you think of what's happening now with Austin, Judge, Sanchez, and a new identity developing.
You gave a great description of the Fab Five guys, by the way. Great personality description, and I think you're right. I think a team builds its own identity. A team builds its reputation. And as you said, those five players right there, the Yankees can only dream that the new core of players that they are having come close to achieving what those guys have achieved. Let's be honest, we're looking in that graphic right there. Jeter's going to the Hall of Fame. Mariano Rivera is going to the Hall of Fame. Posada will get very strong Hall of Fame consideration, as will Pettitte. They're not the slam dunk first-year ballot candidates that Jeter and Rivera are. So you're right, Bob. If the Yankees can develop those kind of identities with Austin and Judge and Sanchez, and though we've seen those players in spring training and we're still getting to know them, they all seem very level-headed. They all seem confident, but also talking about the team, I thought it was very interesting. Meredith on the field yesterday with Aaron Judge, she's asking him about his first Major League at-bat. This guy just hit a moonshot, and the first thing he said was, well, first of all, it was a good team win. teammates noticed that stuff. He didn't want to make it all about himself. He wanted to make it about the team.
Well, it is a great day of stories and recollections of Mariano Rivera today, and there'll be more coming up as we get you to the ceremony live. In the meantime, I want to hear from Joe Girardi, who spoke earlier today about Mo.
Wow. There's a lot of things. I think the man who he was impressed me the most. Mo burst onto the scene in 1996 and really never ever had a rough year. But he never changed. He never changed who he was. He got older, but he never changed. He was extremely humble and was always there for people. What he did for the guys in the bullpen and what he's done in the community. And then when I think about what he did on the field, he mastered a craft. And you can't say that very often about someone has a craft mastered in the game of baseball because it's so difficult. But he knew how to use one pitch and used it better than anyone ever did. And I found it truly amazing.
Whether it be on the field or off the field, is there a story that stands out when it comes to Mo?
One story that stands out when it comes to Mo. No, I don't necessarily think so. But I do remember hitters, and maybe there is one story. I do remember Rafael Palmeiro coming up to the plate and saying, I don't know why they send me up here. The only place I can hit it hard is over our dugout, because Mo had the ability to cut it in on there, and they couldn't do anything with it. And I just found, man, this is some kind of hitter saying that. So that story always amazed me.
Who else, Brendan?
As you said, he really did this with one pitch, his cut fastball. What was it like catching his cut fastball, and could you explain what it was like coming at a hitter?
It was the easiest guy I ever caught. You never had to block a ball. You never had to think about a ball in the dirt. You knew he was going to be really close to where he was trying to throw it. You knew you weren't going to be jumping to the other side of the plate or up or down. For the hitters, it was late, and they just didn't pick it up. Now, I never really faced him, so I can't tell you what it was like to face him, but it was a treat. I mean, honestly, when he came in, you felt, well, there's our security blanket. Game's over. I knew as a catcher when I was here, this is where I have to get the game. You know, whether it was in '96 to the 6th inning after we realized what he was capable of doing, or, you know, a lot of times as a catcher and he was the closer, you'd say, oh, I just got to get it to the 8th. Or as a manager, you know, you think about the game against the Phillies, you start saying, okay, this is where I have to get the game, and then I'm turning it over to Mo. So it was a